Bombshell tonight. Young mom Brooke Hanlon's husband says there's blood everywhere. No arrest. What? No arrest. A young mother stabbed dead on the second floor of her suburban home, and we don't have an arrest. What? Is there a serial killer wandering around that suburban neighborhood? Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
I just found my wife. I don't know what's going on. CPR. I need CPR. Just instructions.
Okay, she's not breathing or conscious?
Oh my God! There's a laceration in her chest. No.
Okay, sir, bear with me one moment.
No.
We're getting help there. Just stay on the line and need some more information, okay?
No. I don't know. It takes blood. Oh, I need you here. I need you here immediately.
Yes, sir. So she is bleeding and she's not conscious. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
All right, sir.
I'm curious about the fingernail scrapings. Was there signs of a struggle? Were there defense wounds on the victim? So a lot of value, a lot of evidentiary value coming out of this case.
You are hearing a portion of that 911 call. We have combed over it over and over and over, every single word, including the tone of his voice when it goes up to a falsetto.
The 911 call begins with a husband saying he just found his wife. He needs CPR instructions. He says she is not breathing or conscious. Then the dispatcher asks him to place his hands on her chest. He says those are cut. He says there is blood everywhere.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what.
Okay, please put your phone on speaker so your hands are free to help her, sir.
It's on speaker. It's on speaker. I did not move it. No, please,
Okay.
No.
One moment.
No.
All right, listen carefully and I'll tell you how to do chest compression, sir. Place the heel of your hand on the breastbone in the center of the chest, right between the nipples.
There's a cut. That's where there's a cut.
I'm sorry, what was that, sir?
There's blood everywhere.
We're going to do this 600 times or until help can take over. Okay, count out loud so I can count with you, okay?
1,
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going, sir. You're doing great. We're going to do this 600 times or until help can take over, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Help is on the way, sir. Keep going.
I need you.
Try and take a deep breath, sir. 3, 4. 1, 3, 4.
No, Brooke.
1,
no,
2,
I need
3,
you.
4. Where are you in the house?
Second floor.
Second floor? Okay. Okay, keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And then the most important sentence in the entire recording, no arrest. Think about what that means for a moment. A young mother stabbed multiple times in the chest and body inside a home with no forced entry. No burglar alarm triggered. No signs of a struggle in the foyer or the entryway.
He called 911. No burglar alarm was activated. Nothing was tripped to call investigators or police to the scene. So no burglar alarm went off. We understand there was no forced entry, and the autopsy is done. Nothing was stated about a sex attack. Also, from what we are learning, there was no struggle in the foyer or the entrance. Let's see the picture or the video of the home again, where you come in the front door. Nothing seemingly was amiss there. As you see, the glass is not busted. There's no pry marks on the door. We don't have fingerprint, dust, the dark fingerprint powder all over the door, the handle to find out who came in, because there was no forced entry. Dave Mack.
That's what we have right now. And see, when we first started covering this, Nancy, I was looking at the entry, because I thought if it was an attack from somebody she didn't know, then maybe she was fleeing upstairs because she was found upstairs in the master bedroom. But Nancy, when you get down to this, you've got blood just up in the master bedroom. We're not told of it being anywhere else. And as you mentioned, there's no sign of any kind of a scuffle happening in the entryway. So we're just up on the second floor of a house that's not like sitting side by side with other homes. You had to know where it is. And again, nothing stolen either. It isn't a robbery gone wrong. This is actually, you hate to say, but targeted. It had to be. And we've
Blood contained to the second floor master bedroom. And 70 days later, no suspect, no person of interest, no public warning to residents. That is not standard procedure. That is a jurisdiction holding its breath.
Listen to this.
But it's been 2 months since 35-year-old Brooke Hamlin was killed in her Chester, New Jersey home, and there has still not been an arrest. There has been very little information released about this case, which I think has left a lot of people wondering, does that mean that they have someone that they have their eye on and they're building a case? Or does it mean the exact opposite and they have no clue who did this?
That is Tate True Crime Psycho Ed. Let's focus on what we know tonight. Straight out to Vanessa Walsh joining us. She is the star of Unmasked True Crime that shot to the forefront during the Lynette Hooker debacle, who I might add still has not been found. No charges, no arrests. Wait a minute, Vanessa. Maybe it's you, because all of the cases you're investigating, they're dead wives, and there's never an arrest, and there's never a resolution. We'll focus on that later. But Vanessa, where has the husband been? No suspects, no person of interest named as of tonight.
It's reported that after the murder that he did go to Massachusetts, where his parents are, for a while. He did come back in mid-July. He is reportedly back in Chester, New Jersey now. However, their 1-year-old daughter, Avery, is reportedly still staying with Brooke's parents.
Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you are subscribed to Trial Theory. Unsealed, because we do not just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Here is the visual anchor. Imagine a house in the middle of dense woods. One long driveway leads in. Behind the house, walking trails converge at a meeting point. You cannot find this home by accident. You do not stumble onto the property. You have to know exactly where you are going. Now imagine a person entering that house in broad daylight without breaking glass, without prying a door, without tripping a sensor. They move through the first floor, leaving no disturbance. They go upstairs. They find a woman. They stab her multiple times. They leave. No one sees them enter. No one sees them exit. That is not a burglary gone wrong. That is a coordinate on a map.
Here are 3 interesting facts regarding the Brooke Hamlin case that a lot of people are not considering. Number 1, this happened in broad daylight on the second floor of her home. Guys, she didn't live on a busy road. She lived like in the woods. You had to take a long driveway and a long path to get to her house. So someone doing that has to know exactly where she lives and know where that path would lead to. And then up on the second floor in broad daylight, that either means she was being chased and she succumbed to the injuries up there, or someone knew exactly where to find her. So that's just number 1, broad daylight and on the second floor.
And still no arrest. This is the part where the official timeline begins to dissolve under its own weight. The husband says he left to buy an auto part. He returns. He calls 911 at 04:29 p.m. First responders arrive, and within 13 minutes, the death is deemed suspicious.
Made at the scene. What do we know about any potential forensics?
What we do know is when first responders did arrive, they immediately, within 2 minutes, knew that the scene looked suspicious. And at 4:42, so just 13 minutes after Connor's 911 call, they had deemed Brooke's death as suspicious and called in the major crimes unit.
The major crimes unit is called. But then law enforcement goes silent. 3 weeks pass before the victim's name is released to the public.
I'm curious about why this has been kept under wraps. You know, they went 3 weeks without even releasing Brooke's name? I've never heard of that. Nothing, not a zilch, zero. What the hey?
Yeah, Nancy, I agree with the doctor you had on previously about the conditions of the stab wounds and all that, but I'm looking at this from a different perspective. Why is this any different? Why is it being handled anything different than another homicide that happens, unfortunately, in this country quite often? Why are we investigating this differently? What are we missing, right? Why are the police doing this basically the way they do it in every other celebrity or non-celebrity murder, right? What's going on, right? To your point, why is it 3 weeks? Why did it take so long to interview the neighbors? What about the crime scene? Was there a weapon found? Was it a household weapon? It's a big difference between lacerations and stab wounds. And it's fortunately, I guess, it's not easy to kill yourself or kill someone unless you're in a fit of rage or you're a professional and you know what you're doing. So I don't think it's a burglary. Is there any signs of burglary? Is there any signs of break-ins? That's the point where I'm getting to. Why is it not out there that this isn't a break-in, no signs of break-in, no signs of this? They're not giving us anything. So that tells me they're holding something back. Now, is it something that the family agreed upon they don't want out there? These are all speculations on my point, on my behalf. Is it something that they don't want out there for the sake of, embarrassing the family or whatever? The husband's not a person of interest or a suspect, nothing? Why is this any different than anything else? We're missing something, and they know what that something is. That ME's report will speak volumes. That's key to me. Is it lacerations? Was an aorta punctured? Were there any defensive wounds, like your previous caller said? I don't know. These are things that ME's report. What actually was the cause of death? Did she bleed to death? Or did she puncture her carotid artery with a knife? Or did someone puncture it? Who benefits by this girl's death? I would check everything. That's what a basic investigator does. Who's on the will? Who's on the insurance? Who was the last person to talk to her? Who was in the house?
Carl DeFazio, former NYPD detective, PI at Carl DeFazio Private Investigations in New Jersey, joining us tonight. Dr.
No
Bethany.
press conferences asking for tips. No description of a suspicious vehicle. No warning to lock doors. In a town where an inn, Holmes' stabbing murder is practically non-existent. The absence of urgency becomes the loudest piece of evidence. The retired investigators look at the fingernail scrapings and the defensive wounds. A knife is not a distant weapon. A knife requires proximity. A knife requires rage or calculation or both. Multiple stab wounds to the chest and body suggest overkill.
So the information we have at the present time is the husband stating that it's a laceration on the chest. Now, people call lacerations are caused by blunt force trauma, but people often confuse them with stab wounds or incised wounds, which is caused by sharp force trauma, which is what her cause of death was made. So if she has a laceration on her chest, it's probably a stab wound that he misinterpreted as a laceration from a knife being plunged into her chest at about heart level and going through her heart or her lungs, and then she bled out.
Overkill suggests intimacy. Intimacy suggests the victim knew the person holding the blade.
So you can have in a stab wound situations where the individual stabs the person and then pulls the knife down, creating a bigger gaping wound. You can also have where they stab into the individual and then don't pull the knife all the way out and stab again, so you get two separate wound tracks from one knife wound. Then, of course, when you have clusters of stab wounds where they're stabbing over and over and over into the same kind of tight circle area, you get multiple stabs in a specific spot, and then all those wound tracks kind of go together in aggregate, basically ripping apart whatever is underneath them. And you see these a lot, and especially when someone's incredibly angry at the individual that they're stabbing. And it's a term that we call overkill, where they just continue to stab even though they've gone past the point of where that stab wound would have killed them, and they keep stabbing and stabbing and stabbing over and over. You see this in domestic cases or intimate partner violence, and you also see it in situations like with Brian Kohlberger, where he just kept stabbing those individuals.
And if she
Dr.
knew them, the pool of possible suspects shrinks dramatically. That is not speculation. That is the arithmetic of forensic pathology. What we are left with is a house with a possible basement entry, a garage on the same level. A person could have been lying in wait.
Let me see that aerial view you were just showing me. It's a heavily wooded area, and as we were hearing earlier, there are trails leading to this home through the woods. You kind of have to know where you're going to find it. Let's see the overhead view. There you go. See her home in the midst of all of those trees? Who would have the motive to go through those trees to get to Brooke Hanlon up in her room on the second floor of the home and kill her? Dave Mack, isn't it true that there is a room in the basement? I wonder if there's an entry there that is the same level as the garage in the home. Dave, let's take a look at that picture again of the home.
Wow, that's amazing. You're right. There is a possible entry into that basement that somebody who, again, you mentioned the pathways, Nancy. Whoever did this knew where they were going and knew what they were getting into. So yeah, they could have gotten in from the basement and gone up, as maybe they were lying in wait until Connor left.
Waiting for the husband to leave. Or the husband could have left because the waiting was already over. Two versions of the same fact pattern. One investigation. No charges. Here is the moral refrain: the evidence is talking, but no one is listening. The parallel narrative appears when you look at the victim's profession. She was a therapist. She worked with emotionally disturbed individuals.
That she is a psychotherapist, much like Dr. Bethany, and she deals with mentally ill and emotionally disturbed people all day. So one of the things police may be doing is investigating many of her, let me say, clients with violent tendencies. Maybe one of them is preoccupied with her. Maybe one of them is angry with her. That would take a lot of time, right?
Absolutely, Nancy. And although that is a possibility and something that investigators are definitely looking into, from what we've heard from friends and family, Brooke was a very kind, loving person. They weren't aware of any person in her past. I mean, obviously they wouldn't know about her clients, but they weren't aware of any person in her past that she had problems with or that would wish her harm. I do think one of the most interesting things about this case isn't just what police aren't saying, it's what they aren't doing. We are not seeing a lot of public press conferences where they're telling residents to lock their doors, be hyper vigilant, report anything you see to the police. Nothing like that. No descriptions of suspicious people or vehicles. So police behavior doesn't really seem to indicate that they feel that there's some knife-wielding maniac running around Chester, New Jersey.
Some of those individuals may have known where she lived. Some may have developed obsessions, and the privilege of a therapist's clients does not die with the therapist. To access those records, investigators need a judge. They need a special master. They need to show relevance with tight facts. That process is slow. That process is methodical. But that process does not explain why the public was left in the dark for 3 weeks. It does not explain why no one was told to be careful, unless the people investigating already knew the public was never in danger, unless they already had their eye on one person and were building a case in silence.
Tonight, Lisa, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the husband's alibi.
On the face of this, with the reporting that he was headed off to a store, we have to look at this, that it's really strange to think that in a county where there's not much violent crime at all, and even less in this particular township does not have in-home stabbing murders. So that is a problem. But right now, we do not know how this investigation's being handled. It may be being handled very, very well. I'm from the school of slow and methodical. As I said earlier, we don't have law enforcement throwing facts out. So there's many, many things that we don't know. We're gleaning things from reporting, we're gleaning some things from social media, but we can't rule out as good detectives that this could have been a targeted attack towards her from someone that she had worked with. Keep in mind, she was a therapist. And in taking a look at who may have targeted her, talking about slow and methodical, the privilege of her clients did not die with her. They still have privilege. So the investigators, as they are going about their business, they can get some administrative records, like maybe some calendar information. They can get some client information. But if they are finding or hearing through their investigation that there is a client that had boundary issues with her, where she had talked to him, to get to her therapist notes in those records, they have to go through a judge. They're going to have to present pretty relevant tight facts. And even with that, a special master is going to have to go through these records to see what law enforcement can gain access to. It's a prudent investigation for law enforcement, for these detectives to come through and not only investigate this husband, because we all know the statistics of that, but we also have to look at alternate suspects and rule those out. Otherwise, that detective and the prosecutor are going to get creamed if this ever goes to trial.
Number 2.
So here is the ticking clock question. If the person responsible is still free, what is stopping them from doing it again?
And you don't always know what your client's issue is when they walk in the door. Have you ever had a client become obsessed with you or actually become afraid of a client or in fear for your safety?
Several times. And it's compounded by the fact that not only do they come into my office, but they see me on television. So that just entrenches the obsession. One actually called my licensing board and said, I can't remember what, something like, Dr. Marshall won't return my calls. Well, the fact is she called me 100 times in one day. You know, what I would say about this case is my experiences of feeling stalked were shared with my spouse and my friends, my neighborhood, because we always have to be careful about somebody coming to our door. My husband's a judge, so they have to take special precautions as well. So did she tell anyone in her close circle that she felt, compromised or endangered? Yeah, HIPAA is a thing and confidentiality is a thing, but that does go out the window when you feel you are endangered. And the other thing is, we are not required to treat patients who compromise our ability to provide good care, meaning that they make us feel scared or unsafe. She does telehealth, right? She's working out of her house. If it was an unstable patient, they would know exactly where she is. But that only her husband would know if she felt threatened. And one small thing too, those cars seem relatively new. And I don't know about you. I remember my dad and brother working on our cars and going to the automobile shop. And it was a thing back in the 80s and the 90s until there were computers installed in our cars. And it's not so easy anymore. What was he working on? Does he have a history of working on the car? Had they ever seen him before in that auto shop? Was he really purchasing something that would be appropriate, like a part that would be appropriate for a more modern day car? There's a lot to analyze there, as there is with so many parts of this case.
And if the person responsible is known to law enforcement, how long does the public have to wait before the silence becomes its own kind of evidence? The husband went to Massachusetts after the killing. He came back. His 1-year-old daughter stayed with the victim's parents. The defense attorney says none of that proves anything. And he is correct. Probative evidence and behavioral evidence are two different things.
In this case, of course, the husband has not been named a suspect, has not been named a person of interest.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, Nancy, but it's not like he got on a plane and flew to Europe. or somewhere else where there's no jurisdiction over him. I mean, he went to his parents. So what? Are we going to read into that and say, well, he must be guilty because he went to mommy and daddy's house? I don't think that's any evidence, frankly, of anything. In fact, as you pointed out, it's been 70 plus days since this occurred. If law enforcement had probable cause to arrest him, they would have done it. Or they would have gone to a judge and said, Your Honor, here's an application for an arrest warrant. Please sign off on this so we can go and arrest this person. So that hasn't happened. So the fact that he went to his parents, I don't read anything into that at all. And he came back. So what? What does that tell us? That's not evidence. We're lawyers, former prosecutors. We rely on evidence. I don't see that as evidence of anything.
But the court of public observation runs on behavioral evidence. A man leaves town. His child stays elsewhere.
That he did anything. But I think it tells me something about his priorities. Leaving your wife's only child who has gone through her own trauma. What did she hear? What did she see? I don't know that. It's probably all locked up here in that child's head. But leaving her and going to mommy and daddy's house while your daughter is alone with the grandparents? No mom and no dad? That tells me something. I'm not quite sure what.
Nancy, it may not be hard evidence, but it's behavioral evidence, which tells us a lot. And in many cases, it's not what we see, it's what we don't see.
He returns without explanation. That does not make him guilty, but it does not make him innocent either. It makes him observable. The medical examiner says the wounds are not consistent with a typical burglary. Burglars carry cheap guns or use blunt objects. They do not bring knives. They do not stab a woman multiple times in the chest and body.
I want to talk to you about the attack on her body. What does that mean when a woman victim is stabbed across her body, potentially the face? I don't know where else.
Well, it's up close and personal, all right? It's usually rage or overkill. If it was a serial killer, let's just go with that for a second, somebody who emerged from the woods, one of those 5 trails that led to a meeting point behind her house, the type of killing would be very different, usually strangulation and then dismemberment of the face, okay? And there would have been similar incidents in nearby communities or states. Let's say the overkill is from meth. That's one of the things we frequently see, and somebody wandered in. If that was the case, that person would still be in the vicinity, disorganized, easily found. What I see with this is a haphazard attempt to kill somebody without much knowledge of what it takes to kill somebody.
They do not linger long enough to create overlapping wound tracks. That kind of violence requires sustained anger.
Now, it seems to me if the perp was coming in maybe they saw the husband leaving to go get the auto parts and thought, oh, nobody's home. I'll go in and take the TV or the VCR. They go in, they see her. Now, this is anecdotal, Dr. Crowns, but in my experience, when a burglar breaks in, they see a person, they leave, they run, and pray to God they don't get identified. It's very rare when a burglar, a true burglar, comes in and stabs the victim when they are found. So the coming in to burgle, finding a victim at home, and then taking time to kill them, much less multiple stab wounds all over the body and chest, I want to hear what you make of it and where most likely the stab wounds are to her body.
Okay, well, again, you've shown pictures of the house. It's out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. It'd be odd for someone to be sitting out there watching and waiting for that moment to break in and steal things. I would think people would notice some unusual car out there sitting around. They'd pick up on it and spot it. So it's a very odd situation. You're correct. Often with burglary, they don't kill the individual. If they are persons in the house, they just get out of there and run because they don't want to go to prison. But of course, occasionally they do stay and kill people. But it's the use of a knife is odd to me because Most of the burglars go in, they have their cheap gun, or they'll beat you to death with something that's at hand, but they don't use a knife. Now, as far as stab wounds all over the body, the thing about a stab wound is you can't kill a person instantaneously with a stab wound. You don't have that kinetic energy like you have with a bullet. So the person will continue to run around and try and fight back. So you'll get injuries to the hands and arms, which are defensive wounds. Then you'll get multiple stabs to different locations of the body as the person's moving, and then eventually dying. So you probably have multiple wounds to the chest, hitting lungs and heart, wounds to the abdomen, hitting the liver and the intestines. It's just difficult to say how many and where they're at, what exactly got hit. But all we do know is there's sharp force injuries and she's dead.
I would agree with you, Doctor, because if she was stabbed in the chest, it makes more sense for the other bodily stabbings to be on the front of the body, such as the arms, the neck, the abdomen.
And sustained anger requires a relationship, even if that relationship existed only inside the mind of the killer. The evidence is talking, but no one is listening. The three facts that matter remain unchanged. Broad daylight, second floor, no forced entry, a home tucked into the woods at the end of a long path. A person would have to know the layout. They would have to know the schedule. They would have to know when the husband left and when he would return. The timing was precise. The escape was clean.
His observation that she was tucked away up on the second floor, which means an intruder would have to come in, no forced entry, not setting off a burglar alarm, make their way up to the second floor and find her. There's no sex attack, there's no robbery, there's no burglary. Find her and murder her and get out before the husband could get back from buying an auto part. What does that say? What inference can we draw from that? What, if anything, does it prove? You're seeing the home from our friends at Fox News. Hit it, Lisa.
Well, we can't make a lot of inferences here because there's a lot of facts we don't know. Her being located in the bedroom would make me wonder and start asking questions. And I'm sure investigators are doing all these things. The sad part of this is right now is those of us out here in the public sphere, we just don't have a lot to go on. We can speculate about a lot of things here, but we just don't have a whole lot of things to look at and judge from
The silence from law enforcement has been precise and clean as well. What does it mean when a small town police department refuses to release the name of a stabbing victim for 3 weeks? It means they are protecting an investigation. Or it means they are protecting something else. Either way, the residents of Chester, New Jersey deserve an answer to one question. If there is no arrest and no suspect and no person of interest, then who exactly are the police protecting? Because the evidence is talking, but no one is listening. Now go look at the publicly available incident reports and the dispatch logs from that afternoon. Compare the timeline. Look at the gap between the 911 call and the first media mention of the case. Ask yourself what happened in those 3 weeks, and then answer this in the comments. If a stranger had committed this murder, would the police really have stayed this quiet? If you want more document-driven breakdowns like this one, like this video, share it. Subscribe to Trial Theory, Unsealed, and turn on notifications. Because the next time the evidence starts talking, you will want to be the first one listening.